make some new friends, and so it's been a while. So I think I want to do a little bit of everything. Do the bowl, the little bowl, the big bowl, and we are on the heart of our chakra energy part. But instead of the normal breathing exercise, I think I'm gonna do something a little different. I've been learning different ways to center yourself and open yourself to the energies around you to receive and manifest. So I've been doing a little research, a little studying, only to help cultivate my skill set. So whenever people wind up getting a reading, yeah, it's gonna be exciting, amazing. I should have a few coming up in a minute. I'm gonna have to start asking people again. Can I record them a little bit, at least or even if they feel comfortable showing their I was in Atlanta last week. And it's funny because I ain't taking a lot of videos. Either I'm weird about Atlanta, but we were in Buckhead. And then I came home Friday. Western North Carolina. Like 2-3 weeks ago. Witnessed a small singing bowl set to the key. But it's for your throat chakra. That mess will keep playing. We should be good now. Yeah, you know, sound be tripping. You know, the sound has always been one of our bigger challenges sometimes. And I really didn't take the time to mess with it today. So, yeah, I had to cut the music off. I couldn't use my little board. I gotta put my rap voice on. Alright, we're on the little bowl. Now I'm gonna bring this big one up. And it is G. Man, I hadn't used the bowls in a couple of weeks for myself, really. And I was thinking about that earlier. I need to do some Reiki on myself this weekend. Maybe I'll make a video of myself. Do some self-love. Yeah. So the breathing exercise is a little different. It's going to include somewhat of a visualization. And it's one of the things I've learned. And we're just going to do a little alterations to fit our needs and make it uniquely ours. So this is something called the sun-moon centering. And it's supposed to remove feelings of impurity, whatever that means for you. So it's going to, and it's supposed to be used before to initiate a ceremony. And we have book club is a ceremony. We meet for the most part, every Thursday, 7 o'clock. We read a book. We do some bowls. We do chakra cleaning. So that's ceremony. And we do weekly. So this is supposed to clear us of impurities prior to our ceremony. So what you need to do is stand up. But in this case, I want you to get into a position that's comfortable for you. Whether it's like me, sitting down, or if it's standing up, or if it's crisscross applesauce. Listen, I don't know if I taught the kids or they taught me, because I still call it crisscross applesauce, right? Which is wild. But You close your eyes, and in your crown chakra, right above your head, right here in this area, you visualize a moon shape or a solar disk. So you want to have a circle of light that either reflects the moon or the sun for you. Or if you feel better doing half and half, do that. So you close your eyes, you visualize the sun or the moon in your crown chakra. And with every breath in, you bring it down to the next chakra. And I will go through the chakras to help you, the energy points to help you. So we start in our crown. On 3, we're going to breathe in. And that is going to be when we move, right? So our first breath in, 1, 2, 3, breathe in. And move that disc down to your third eye, your forehead. And you breathe out. Breathe in, move it down to your throat. And breathe out. Breathe in, move it down to your heart. Breathe out. Breathe in, move it down to your solar plexus, your stomach. And breathe out. Breathe in, move it down to your sacral. And breathe out. Did we skip part? We did skip part, didn't we? No, we'll get it on the way back, y'all. Breathe in, move it down to your root. And breathe out. Now breathe in and move it up to your sacral. Breathe out. Breathe in, move it up to your solar plexus. Breathe out. Breathe in, move it up to your heart. Breathe out. Breathe in, move it up to your throat. Breathe out. Breathe in, move it up to your third eye. Breathe out. Breathe in, move it up to your crown. And breathe out. So the element for your heart chakra is air. So it's good that the activity allowed us to work on our breathing. And while we're here, I want you to close your eyes again if you opened them. And I want you to, with your right hand, imagine you attracting love, peace, happiness. And with your left hand, push through the ethers and the elements, those things you don't want, worry, stress, fear. And with both of your hands, imagine yourself shaping, molding, and nourishing your heart. And while you are doing that, repeat after me. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open, loving, and pure. I follow the voice of my heart. I love myself and others. I deserve to be loved. I forgive others easily. My heart is fully open, loving, and pure. I follow the voice of my heart. So those are some heart affirmations. Um, we're making sure we be mindful of the words we say to ourselves, and our spelling. And I don't know if I talked about it on book club. I know I did talk about it. Dang, maybe I've been talking about it a bunch lately. But what is the most commanded thing in the Bible? It is fear not. Fear not. So, where we are in the book, I'm surprised I remember. I mean, I really like this book. So, I guess he had the vision from the birds that soldiers were going to be coming to the town. He met with the chieftains or tribal leaders of the oasis. They told him if the men don't come, they gon' and as he was walking, some guy rode up on a horse with a sword and scared him and asked him about his vision and a couple other things. And turns out the guy on the horse is the alchemist that they've been looking for. Well, at least the Englishman has been looking for the alchemist. The alchemist, the book, the main character, he has been looking for his treasure. Right? All right. Next morning, there were 2,000 armed men scattered throughout the palm trees at the Al Fayoum. Before the sun had reached its highest point, 500 tribesmen had appeared in the horizon. The mounted troops entered the oasis from the north. It appeared to be a peaceful expedition, but they all carried arms hidden in their robes. When they reached the right tent at the center of Al Fayoum, they withdrew their scimitars and rifles, and they attacked an empty tent. The men of the oasis surrounded the horsemen from the desert, and within half an hour, all but one of the intruders were dead. The children had been kept at the other side of the grove of palm trees and saw nothing of what happened. The women had remained in their tents, praying for the safekeeping of their husbands, and saw nothing of the battle either. Were it not for the bodies on the ground, it would have appeared to be a normal day at the oasis. The only tribesman spared was the commander of the battalion. That afternoon, he was brought before the tribal chieftains, who asked him why he violated the traditions. The commander said that his men had been starving and thirsty and exhausted from many days of battle, and had decided to take the oasis so as to be able to return to the war. Let me see. All right. Let me see how this works. The tribal chieftain said he felt sorry for the tribesmen, but the tradition was sacred. He condemned the commander to death without honor. Rather than being killed by a blade or a bullet, he was hanged from a dead palm tree where his body twisted in the desert wind. The tribal chieftain called for the boy and presented him with 50 gold pieces. He repeated his story about Joseph of Egypt and asked the boy to become the counselor of the oasis. When the sun had set, the first stars made their appearance. The boy started to walk south. He eventually sighted a single tent, and a group of Arabs passing by told the boy that it was the place inhabited by genies. The boy sat down and waited. Not until the moon was high did the alchemist ride into view. He carried 2 dead hawks over his shoulder. "I am here," the boy said. "You shouldn't be here," the alchemist answered. "Or is it your personal legend that brings you here? With the wars between tribesmen, it's impossible to cross the desert, so I have come here." The alchemist dismounted from his horse and signaled the boy that he should enter the tent with him. It was a tent like many at the oasis. The boy looked around for the ovens and other apparatus used in alchemy, but saw none. There were only some books in a pile, a small cooking stove, and carpets covered with mysterious designs. "Sit down. We'll have something to drink and eat these hawks," said the alchemist. The boy suspected that they were the same hawks he had seen on the day before, but he said nothing. The alchemist lighted the fire, and soon a delicious aroma filled the tent. It was better than the scent of the hookahs. "Why did you want to see me?" the boy asked. "Because of the omens," the alchemist answered. "The wind told me you would be coming and that you would need help. It's not I the wind spoke about. It's the other foreigner, the Englishman. He's the one that's looking for you. He has other things to do first, but he's on the right track. He has begun to understand the desert. And what about me? When a person really desires something, all the universe conspires to help that person to realize his dream," said the alchemist, echoing the words of the old king. The boy understood. Another person was there to help him with his personal legend. "So you are going to instruct me?" "No. You already know all you need to know. I'm going to point you in the direction of your treasure." "But there's tribal war," the boy reiterated. "I know what's happening in the desert. I have already found my treasure. I have a camel, I have my money from the crystal shop, and I have 50 gold pieces in my own country. I would be a rich man. But none of that is from the pyramid, said the alchemist. I also have Fatima. She is a treasure greater than anything else I have won. She wasn't found at the pyramids either. They ate in silence. The alchemist opened the bottle and poured red liquid into the boy's cup. It was the most delicious wine he had ever tasted. Isn't wine prohibited here? The boy asked. It's not what enters men's mouth that's evil, said the alchemist. It's what comes out that is. The alchemist was a bit daunting, but as the boy drank the wine, he relaxed. After he finished eating, they sat outside the tent under the moon so brilliant that it made the stars pale. Drink and enjoy yourself, said the alchemist, noticing the boy was feeling happier. Rest well tonight, as if you were a warrior preparing for combat. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. You've got to find the treasure so that everything you've learned along the way can make sense. Tomorrow, sell your camel and buy a horse. Camels are treacherous. They walk thousands of paces and never seem to tire. Then suddenly, they kneel and die. But horses tire bit by bit. You'll always know how much you can ask of them, and when it is that they are about to die. That's wild. The following night, the boy appeared at the alchemist's tent with a horse. The alchemist was ready, and he mounted his own steed, and placed the falcon on his left shoulder. He said to the boy, "Show me where there is life out in the desert. Only those who can see such signs of life are able to find the treasure." They began to ride out over the sands with the moon lighting their way. I don't know if I'll be able to find life in the desert, the boy thought. I don't know the desert that well yet. He wanted to say so to the alchemist, but he was afraid of the man. They reached the rocky place where the boy had seen the hawks in the sky, but now there was only the silence and the wind. I don't know how to find life in the desert, the boy said. I know there's life here, but I don't know where to look. Life attracts life, the alchemist answered. And then the boy understood. He loosened the reins on his horse, who galloped forward over rocks and sand. The alchemist followed as the boy's horse ran for almost half an hour. They could no longer see the palms of the oasis, only the gigantic moon above them, and the silver reflections from the stones of the desert. Suddenly, for no apparent reason, the boy's horse began to slow. There's life here, the boy said to the alchemist. I don't know the language of the desert, but my horse knows the language of life. They dismounted, and the alchemist said nothing. Advancing slowly, they searched among the stones. The alchemist stopped abruptly and bent to the ground. There was a hole there among the stones. The alchemist put his hand in the hole, and then his entire arm up to the shoulder. Something was moving there, and the alchemist's eyes, the boy could see only his eyes, squinted with his effort. His arm seemed to be battling with whatever was in that hole. Then, with the motion that startled the boy, he withdrew his arm and leaped to his feet. In his hand, he grasped the snake by the tail. The boy leapt as well, but away from the alchemist. The snake fought frantically, making hissing sounds that shattered the silence of the desert. It was a cobra whose venom could kill a person in minutes. Watch out for its venom, the boy said. But even though the alchemist had put his hand in the hole and had surely already been bitten, his expression was calm. The alchemist is 200 years old, the Englishman had told him. He must know how to deal with snakes of the desert. The boy watched as his companion and his horse and withdrew his scimitar. With his blade, he drew a circle in the sand and he placed the snake within it. The serpent relaxed immediately. Not to worry, said the alchemist. He won't leave the circle. You found life in the desert, the omen that I needed. Why was that so important? Because the pyramids are surrounded by the desert. The boy didn't want to talk about the pyramids. His heart was heavy, and he had been melancholy since the previous night. To continue search for the treasure meant that he had abandoned Fatima. I'm going to guide you across the desert, the alchemist said. I want to stay at the oasis, the boy answered. I found Fatima, and as far as I'm concerned, she's worth more than treasure. Fatima is the woman of the desert, said the alchemist. She knows that men have to go away in order to return. She already has her treasure. It's you. Now she expects that you will find what it is you're looking for. Well, what if I decide to stay? Let me tell you what will happen. You'll be the counselor of the oasis. You'll have enough gold to buy many sheep and many camels. You'll marry Fatima, and you'll both be happy for a year. You'll learn to love the desert, and you'll get to know everyone within 50,000 palms. You'll watch them as they grow, just demonstrating how the world is always changing. And you'll get better at understanding omens because the desert is the best teacher there is. Sometime during your second year, you'll remember about the treasure. The omens will begin insistently speaking of it, and you'll try to ignore them. You'll use your knowledge for the welfare of the oasis and its inhabitants. The tribal chieftains will appreciate what you do, and your camels will bring you wealth and power. During the third year, the omens will continue to speak of your treasure and your personal legend. You'll walk around night after night at the oasis, and Fatima will be unhappy because she feels that it's she who interrupted your quest. But you will love her, and she'll return your love. You'll remember that she never asked you to stay because a woman of the desert knows that she must await her man. So you won't blame her. But many times you'll walk the sands of the deserts thinking that maybe you could have left, that you could have trusted more in your love for Fatima. Because what kept you at the oasis was your own fear that you might never come back. At that point, the omens will tell you that your treasure is buried forever. Then, sometime during the fifth year, the omens will abandon you because you stopped listening to them. The tribal chieftains will see that, and you'll be dismissed from your position as counselor. But by then, you'll be a rich merchant with many camels and a great deal of merchandise. You'll spend the rest of your days knowing that you didn't pursue your personal legend and that now it's too late. You must understand that love never keeps a man from pursuing his personal legend. If he abandons that pursuit, it's because it wasn't true love. The love that speaks the language of the world. The alchemist erased the circle in the sand, and the snake slithered away among the rocks. The boy remembered the crystal merchant who had wanted to go to Mecca, and the Englishman in search of the alchemist. He thought of the woman who trusted the desert, and he looked out over that desert that had brought him to the woman he loved. They mounted their horses, and this time it was the boy who followed the alchemist back to the oasis. The wind brought the sound of the oasis to them, and the boy tried to hear Fatima's voice. But that night, as he watched the cobra within the circle, the strange horseman with the falcon on his shoulder had spoken of love and treasure, and the woman of the desert, and of his personal legend. I'm going with you, the boy said, and he immediately felt peace in his heart. We'll leave tomorrow before sunrise, was the alchemist's only response. I don't know what time it is. The boy spent sleepless nights. 2 hours before dawn, he awoke one of the boys who slept in his tent and asked him to show him where Fatima lived. They went to her tent, and the boy gave his friend enough gold to buy a sheep. Then he asked his friend to go into the tent where Fatima was sleeping and to awaken her and tell her that he was waiting outside. The young Arab did as he was asked and was given enough gold to buy yet another sheep. Now leave us alone, said the boy to the young Arab. The Arab returned to his tent to sleep, proud to have helped the counselor of the oasis and happy at having enough money to buy himself some sheep. Fatima appeared at the entrance of the tent. The two walked out amongst the palms. The boy knew it was a violation of the tradition, but that didn't matter to him now. I'm going away, he said, and I want you to know that I'm coming back. I love you because... Don't say anything, Fatima interrupted. One is love because one is love. No reason is needed for loving. But the boy continued. I had a dream, and I met with a king. I sold crystal and crossed the desert. And because the tribes declared war, I went to the well seeking the alchemist. So I love you because the entire universe conspired to help me find you. The two embraced. It was the first time either had touched the other. I'll be back, the boy said. Before this, I always looked to the desert with longing, said Fatima. Now, it will be with hope. My father went away one day, but he returned to my mother, and he has always come back since then. They said nothing else. They walked a bit further amongst the palms, and then the boy left her at the entrance of her tent. I'll return just as your father came back to your mother, he said. He saw that Fatima's eyes were filled with tears. You're crying. I'm a woman of the desert, she said, averting her face, but above all, I'm a woman. Fatima went back to her tent, and when daylight came, she went out to do the chores that she had done for years. But everything had changed. The boy was no longer at the oasis, and the oasis would never again have the same meaning it had only yesterday. It'd no longer be a place of 50,000 palm trees and 300 wells where the pilgrims arrived relieved at the end of their long journeys. From that day on, the oasis would be an empty place for her. From that day on, it was the desert that would be important. She would look to it every day and try to guess which star the boy was following in search of his treasure. She would have to send her kisses on the wind, hoping that the wind would touch the boy's face and would tell him that she was alive, that she was waiting for him, a woman awaiting a courageous man in search of his treasure. From that day on, the desert would represent only one thing to her, the hope for his return. Don't think about what you've left behind, the alchemist said to the boy as they began to ride across the sands. Everything is written in the soul of the world, and there it will stay forever. Men dream more about coming home than about leaving, the boy said. He was already reaccustomed to the desert silence. If what one finds is made of pure matter, it will never spoil. And one can always come back. If what you have found was only a moment of light, like the explosion of a star, you would find nothing on your return. The man was speaking the language of alchemy, but the boy knew that he was referring to Fatima. It was difficult not to think about what he left behind. The desert with its endless monotony, putting him to dreaming. The boy could still see the palm trees, the wells, and the face of the woman he had loved. He could see the Englishman at his experiments and the camel driver who was a teacher without realizing it. Maybe the alchemist has never been in love, the boy thought. The alchemist rode in front with the falcon on his shoulder. The bird knew the language of the desert well, and whenever they stopped, he flew off in search of game. On the first day, he returned with a rabbit, and on the second day with 2 birds. At night, they spread their sleeping gear and kept their fires hidden. The desert nights were cold and were becoming darker and darker as the phases of the moon passed. They went on for a week, speaking only of precautions they need to follow in order to avoid the battles between the tribes. The war continued, and at times, The wind carried sweet, sickly smell of blood. Battles had been fought nearby, and the wind reminded the boy that there was a language of omens, always ready to show him what his eyes had failed to observe. On the seventh day, the alchemist decided to make camp earlier than usual. The falcon flew off to find game, and the alchemist offered his water container to the boy. "You're almost at the end of your journey," said the alchemist. "I congratulate you for having pursued your personal legend. And you've told me nothing along the way," the boy said. "I thought you were going to teach me some things you knew. A while ago, I rode through the desert with a man who had books on alchemy, but I wasn't able to learn anything from them." "There is only one way to learn," the alchemist answered. "It is through action. Everything you need to know, you have learned through your journey. You need to learn only one thing more." The boy wanted to know what that was, but the alchemist was searching the horizon, looking for the falcon. "Why are you called the alchemist?" "Because that's what I am." And what went wrong when the other alchemists tried to make gold and they were able to do so? "They were looking only for gold," his companion answered. "They were seeking the treasure of their personal legend without wanting actually to live out their personal legend." "What is it that I still need to know?" the boy asked. But the alchemist continued to look at the horizon, and finally the falcon returned with their meal. They dug a hole and lit the fire in it so the light of the flames would not be seen. "I'm an alchemist simply because I'm an alchemist," he said as he prepared the meal. "I learned the science from my grandfather, who learned from his father, and so on, back to the creation of the world. In those times, the masterwork could be written simply on an emerald, but men began to reject simple things and write tracts, interpretations, and philosophical studies. They also began to feel that they knew better ways than the others had. Yet the emerald tablet is still alive today." "It was written on an emerald tablet?" the boy wanted to know. The alchemist began to draw in the sand and complete his drawing in less than 5 minutes. As he drew, the boy thought of the old king in the plaza where they had met. It seemed as if it had taken place years and years ago. "This is what was written on the emerald tablet," said the alchemist when he had finished. The boy tried to read what was written in the sand. "It's a code," said the boy, a bit disappointed. "It looks like what I saw in the Englishman's book." "No," the alchemist answered. "It's like the flight of two hawks. It can't be understood by reason alone. The emerald tablet is a direct passage to the soul of the world. The wise men understood that this natural world is only an image of a copy of paradise. The existence of this world is simply a guarantee that there exists a world that is perfect. God created the world so that through its visible objects, men could understand his spiritual teachings and the marvels of his wisdom. That's what I mean by action." "Should I understand the emerald tablet?" the boy asked. "Perhaps. If you were in the laboratory of an alchemist, this would be the right time to study the best way to understand the emerald tablet. But you are in the desert, so immerse yourself in it. The desert will give you understanding of the world. In fact, anything on the face of this earth will do that. You don't even have to understand the desert. All you have to do is contemplate a simple grain of sand, and you will see in it the marvels of creation." "How do I immerse myself in the desert?" "Listen to your heart. It knows all things because it came from the soul of the world, and it will one day return there." They crossed the desert for another 2 days in silence. The alchemists had become much more cautious because they were approaching an area where the most violent battles were being waged. As they moved along, the boy tried to listen to his heart. It was not easy to do. In earlier times, his heart had always been ready to tell his story, But lately, that wasn't true. There had been times where his heart spent hours telling of his sadness, and at other times, it became so emotional over the desert sunrise that the boy had to hide his tears. His heart beat fast when it spoke to the boy of treasure, and more slowly when the boy stared entranced at the endless horizon of the desert. But his heart was never quiet, even when the boy and the alchemist had fallen into silence. Why do we have to listen to our hearts? The boy asked when they had made a camp that day. Because wherever your heart is, that is where you'll find your treasure. But my heart is agitated, the boy said. It has dreams, it gets emotional, and it's become passionate over a woman of the desert. It asks things of me and keeps me from sleeping many nights when I'm thinking about her. Well, that's good. Your heart is alive. Keep listening to what it has to say. During the next 3 days, the two travelers passed by a number of armed tribesmen and saw others on the horizon. The boy's heart began to speak fear. It told him stories it had heard from the soul of the world, stories of men who sought to find their treasure and never succeeded. Sometimes it frightened the boy with the idea that he might not find his treasure or that he might die there in the desert. At other times, it told the boy that it was satisfied. It had found love and riches. My heart is a traitor, the boy said to the alchemist when they paused to get rest. It doesn't want me to go on. That makes sense, the alchemist answered. Naturally, it's afraid that in pursuing your dream, you might lose everything you've won. Well, then, why should I listen to my heart? Because you will never again be able to keep it quiet. Even if you pretend not to have heard what it tells you, it will always be there inside of you, repeating to you what you're thinking about life and about the world. You mean I should listen, even if it's treasonous? Treason is a blow that comes unexpectedly. If you know your heart well, you will never be able to do that because you'll know its dreams and its wishes, and you'll know how to deal with them. You will never be able to escape from your heart. So it's better to listen to what it has to say. That way, you'll never have to fear an unexpected blow. I know that's right. The boy continued to listen to his heart as they crossed the desert. They came to understand its dodges and tricks, and they accepted it was. He lost his fear and forgot about the need to go back to the oasis because one afternoon, his heart told him that it was happy. Even though I complained sometimes, it said, it's because the heart of a person and people's hearts are that way. People are afraid to pursue their most important dreams because that they'll be unable to achieve them. We, their hearts, become fearful just thinking of loved ones who go away forever or the moments that they could have been good but weren't, or of the treasures that might have been found but were forever hidden in the sands. Because when these things happen, we suffer terribly. My heart is afraid that it will have to suffer, the boy told the alchemist one night as they looked up at the moonless sky. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself. I know that's right. And that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second encounter with God and with eternity. Every second of search is an encounter with God, the boy told his heart. When we've been truly searching for my treasure, every day has been luminous because I've known that every hour was a part of the dream that I would find it. When I have been truly searching for my treasure, I've discovered things along the way that I would never have seen had I not had the courage to try the things that seemed impossible for a shepherd to achieve. So his heart was quiet for an entire afternoon. That night, the boy slept deeply. And when he awoke, his heart began to tell him things that came from the soul of the world. It said all people who were happy have God within them. And that happiness could be found in a grain of sand of the desert, as the alchemist has said, because a grain of sand is a moment of creation, and the universe has taken millions of years to create it. Everyone on this earth has a treasure that awaits him. His heart said. We, people's heart, seldom say much about those treasures because people no longer want to go in search of them. We speak of them only to children. Later, we simply let life proceed in its own direction, toward its own fate. But unfortunately, very few follow a path that laid out for them, the path to their personal legends and to happiness. Most people see the world as a threatening place, and because they do, the world turns out indeed to be a threatening place. So we, their hearts, speak more and more softly. We never stop speaking out, but we begin to hope that our words won't be heard. We don't want people to suffer because they don't follow their hearts. Why don't people's hearts tell them to continue to follow their dreams? The boy asked the alchemist. Because that's what makes the heart suffer most. And hearts don't like to suffer. From then on, the boy understood his heart. He asked it, please, never stop speaking to him. He asked that when he wandered far from his dreams, that his heart press him and sound the alarm. The boy swore that every time he heard the alarm, he would heed his message. That night, he told all of this to the alchemist, and the alchemist understood that the boy's heart had returned to the soul of the world. So what should I do now? The boy asked. Continue in the direction of the pyramids, said the alchemist, and continue to pay heed to the omens. Your heart is still capable of showing you where your treasure is. Is that one thing I still need to know? No, the alchemist answered. What you still need to know is this. Before a dream is realized, the soul of the world tests everything that was learned along the way. It does this not because it's evil, but so that we can, in addition to realizing our dreams, master the lessons we've learned and move toward that dream. That's the part at which most people give up. It's the part at which, as we thirst, it's the part at which, as we say in the language of the desert, one dies of thirst just when the palm trees have appeared on the horizon. Every search begins with the beginner's luck, and every search ends with the victor being severely tested. The boy remembered an old proverb from his country. It said that in the darkest hour of night came just before dawn. On the following day, the first clear sign of danger appeared. 3 armed tribesmen had approached and asked the boy what he and the alchemist were doing. I'm hunting with my falcon, the alchemist answered. We're going to have to search you, whether you're armed, one of the tribesmen said. The alchemist dismounted slowly, and the boy did the same. Why are you carrying money? Asked the tribesman when he searched the boy's bag. I needed to get in the pyramids, he said. The tribesman who was searching the alchemist's belongings found a small crystal flask filled with liquid and a yellow glass egg that was slightly larger than a chicken's egg. What are these things? He asked. That's the philosopher's stones and the elixir of life. It's the masterwork of an alchemist. Whoever swallows the elixir will never be sick again, and a fragment of the stone turns any metal into gold. The Arabs laughed at him, and the alchemist laughed along. They thought his answer was amusing, and they allowed the boy and the alchemist to proceed with all their belongings. Are you crazy? The boy asked the alchemist when they moved. What did you do that for? To show you one of life's simplest lessons, the alchemist answered. When you possess great treasures within you and try to tell others of them, seldom are you believed. I know that's right. They continued to cross the desert. With every day that passed, the boy's heart became more and more silent. It no longer wanted to know things about the past or future. It was content simply to contemplate the desert and to drink with the boy from the soul of the world. The boy and his heart had become friends, and neither was capable now of betraying the other. When his heart spoke to him, it was provide a stimulus to the boy and give him strength because the days of silence there in the desert were wearisome. His heart told the boy what his strongest qualities were: his courage in having given up his sheep and in trying to leave out his personal legend, and his enthusiasm during the time he had worked at the crystal shop. And his heart told him something else that the boy had never noticed. It told the boy of the dangers that had threatened him, but he had never perceived. His heart said that one time it had hidden a rifle the boy had taken from his father because of possibility that the boy might wound himself. And it reminded the boy of the day when he had been ill and vomiting out of the fields, after which he had fallen into a deep sleep. There had been two thieves further ahead who were planning to steal the boy's sheep and murder him. But since the boy hadn't passed by, they had decided to move on, thinking he had changed his route. Does a man's heart help him? Does a man's heart always help him? The boy asked the alchemist. Mostly, just the heart of those who are trying to realize their personal legend. But they do help children, drunkards, and the elderly too. Does that mean I'll never run into danger? It means only that the heart does what it can, the alchemist said. One afternoon they passed by an encampment of the tribesmen. At each corner of the camp were Arabs garbed in beautiful white robes with arms at the ready. The men were smoking their hookahs and trading stories from the battlefield. No one paid any attention to the two travelers. There's no danger, the boy said when they had moved past the encampment. The alchemist sounded angry. Trust your heart, but never forget that you're in the desert. When men are at war with one another, the soul of the world can hear the screams of the battle. No one fails to suffer the consequences. Everything under the sun. All things are one, the boy thought. And then, as if the desert wanted to demonstrate that the alchemist was right, two horsemen appeared behind the travelers. You can't go any further, one of them said. You're in an area where the tribesmen are at war. I'm not going very far, the alchemist answered, looking straight into the eyes of the horsemen. They were silent for a moment, and then agreed that the boy and the alchemist could move along. The boy watched the exchange with fascination. You dominated those horsemen with the way you looked at them. Your eyes show strength of your soul, answered the alchemist. That's true, the boy thought. He had noticed that, in the midst of the multitude of armed men back at the encampment, there had been one who stared fixedly at the two. He had been so far away that his face wasn't even visible, but the boy was certain that he had been looking at them. Finally, when they had crossed the mountain range that extended along the entire horizon, the alchemist said that they were only 2 days from the pyramids. If we're going to go our separate ways, so on. If we're going to go our separate ways soon, the boy said, then teach me about alchemy. You already know about alchemy. It's about penetrating the soul of the world and discovering the treasure that has been reserved for you. No, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about transforming lead into gold. The alchemist fell silent as the desert and answered the boy only after they had stopped to eat. Everything in the universe has evolved, he said. And for wise men, gold is the metal that evolved the furthest. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. I just know the tradition is always right. Men have never understood the word of the wise, so gold, instead of being seen as a symbol of evolution, has become a basis of conflict. There are so many languages spoken by things, the boy said. There was a time when, for me, a camel's whining was nothing more than whining. Then it became a signal of danger, and finally became just whining again. But then he stopped. The alchemist probably already knew all that. I have no true alchemist, the alchemist continued. They've locked themselves in their laboratories and tried to evolve as gold had. And they found the philosopher's stones because they understood that when something evolves, everything around that evolves as well. Others stumbled upon the stone by accident. They already had a gift, and their souls were readier for such things than souls of others, but they don't count. They're quite rare. And when there and when and then there were others who were interested only in gold. They never found the secret. They forgot that lead, copper, and iron have their own personal legends to fulfill, and anyone who interferes with the personal legend of another thing will never discover its own. The alchemist's words echoed out like a curse. He reached over, picked up a shell from the ground. This desert was once the sea, he said. I noticed that, the boy answered. The alchemist told the boy to place the shell over his ear. He had done that many times when he was a child and heard the sound of the sea. The sea has lived on in this shell because it's personal legend, and it will never cease doing so until the desert is once again covered by water. They mounted their horses and rode out in the direction of the pyramids of Egypt. The sun was setting when the boy's heart sounded a danger signal. They were surrounded by gigantic dunes, and the boys looked at the alchemist to see whether he had sensed anything. But he appeared to be unaware of any danger. 5 minutes later, the boy saw 2 horsemen waiting ahead of them. Before he could say anything to the alchemist, the 2 horsemen had become 10, and then 100, and then they were everywhere in the dunes. They were the tribesmen dressed in blue with black rings surrounding their turbans. Their faces were hidden with blue veils, with only their eyes showing. Even from a distance, their eyes conveyed the strength of their souls, and their eyes spoke of death. The 2 were taken to a nearby military camp. A soldier shoved the boy and the alchemist in a tent where the chief was holding a meeting with his staff. These are spies, said one of the men. We're just travelers, the alchemist answered. You were seen at an enemy camp 3 days ago, and you were talking with one of the troops there. I'm just a man who wanders the desert and knows the stars, said the alchemist. I have no information about troops or about movements of the tribes. I was simply acting as a guide for my friend here. Who is your friend? The chief asked. An alchemist, said the alchemist. He understands the forces of nature, and he wants to show you his extraordinary powers. The boy listened quietly and fearfully. What is a foreigner doing here? He asked the other men. He has brought money to give to your tribe, said the alchemist. Before the boy could say a word and seizing the boy's bag, the alchemist gave the gold coins to the chief. The Arab accepted them without a word. There was enough to buy a lot of weapons. What is an alchemist? He asked finally. It's a man who understands the nature of the world. If he wanted to, he could destroy this camp with just the force of the wind. The men laughed. They were used to ravages of war, and they knew that the wind could not deliver them a fatal blow. Yet each felt his heart beat a little faster. They were men of the desert, and they were fearful of sorcerers. I want to see him do it, said the king. He needs 3 days, answered the alchemist. He's going to transform himself into the wind just to demonstrate his powers. If he can't do so, we humbly offer you our lives for the honor of your tribe. You can't offer me something that's already mine, said the chief arrogantly, but he granted the travelers 3 days. The boy was shaken with fear, but the alchemist helped him out of the tent. Don't let them see you're afraid, the alchemist said. They are brave men, and they despise cowards. But the boy couldn't even speak. He was able to do so only after they had walked through the center of the camp. There was no need to imprison them. The Arabs simply confiscated their horses, so once again, The world had demonstrated as many languages. The desert only moments ago had been endless and free, and now was an impenetrable wall. You gave them everything I had, the boy said. Everything I've saved in my entire life. Well, what good would it do you if you had to die? The alchemist answered. Your money saved us for 3 days. It's not often that money saves a person's life. But the boy was too frightened to listen to words of wisdom. He had no idea how he was going to transform himself into the wind, and he wasn't an alchemist. And hold on. I'll read a little bit more and then wrap it up. Okay, I'll read the end of this chapter, then we move on. The boy asked one of the soldiers for some tea and poured some on the boy's wrist. A wave of relief washed over him, and the alchemist muttered some words that the boy didn't understand. Don't give in to your fears, said the alchemist in a strange, gentle voice. If you do, you won't be able to talk to your heart. But I have no idea how to turn myself into the wind. If a person is living out his personal legend, he knows everything he needs to know. There is only one thing that makes dreams possible to achieve: the fear of failure. I'm not afraid of failing. It's just that I don't know how to turn myself into wind. Well, you'll have to learn. Your life depends on it. But what if I can't? Then you'll die in the midst of trying to realize your personal legend. And that's a lot better than dying like a million other people who have never even tried, never even knew what their personal legends were. But don't worry, the alchemist continued. Usually the threat of death makes people a lot more aware of their lives. The first day passed. There was a major battle nearby, and a number of wounded were brought back to the camp. The dead soldiers were replaced by others, and life went on. Death doesn't change anything, the boy thought. You could have died later on, a soldier said to the body of one of his companions. You could have died after peace had been declared. But in any case, you were going to die. At the end of the day, the boy went looking for the alchemist who had taken his falcon out into the desert. I still have no idea how to turn myself into the wind, the boy repeated. Remember what I told you. The world is the only visible aspect of God. And that what alchemy does is to bring spiritual perfection into contact with the material plane. What are you doing? Feeding my falcon. If I'm not able to turn myself into wind, we're going to die, the boy said. Why feed your falcon? You're the one who may die, the alchemist said. I already know how to turn myself into the wind. I ain't worried about it. You gonna die. I'm good. On the second day, the boy climbed a cliff near the camp. The sentinels allowed him to go. They had already heard about the sorcerer who could turn himself into the wind, and they didn't want to go near him. In any case, the desert was impassable. He spent the entire afternoon of the second day looking out over the desert and listening to his heart. The boy knew the desert sensed his fear. They both speak the same language. On the third day, the chief met with his officers. He called the alchemist to a meeting and said, let's go see the boy who turns himself into the wind. Let's, the alchemist said. The boy took them to a cliff where he had been on the previous day. He told them all to be seated. It's going to take a while, the boy said. We're in no hurry, the chief answered. We are men of the desert. The boy looked out into the horizon. There were mountains in the distance, and there were dunes, rocks, and plants that insisted on living where survival seemed impossible. There was the desert that had wandered for so many months. Despite all of that time, he knew only a small part of it. Within that small part, he had found an Englishman, caravans, tribal wars, and an oasis with 50,000 palm trees and 300 wells. Okay, yeah, we stopped there. It's past 8. Let me see. Yeah, that's a good time to stop. Where we at? All right, family. I appreciate you. We've been gone for a while. I was glad to be back this week. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of reading of The Alchemist. Um, I'm curious to see how he's going to turn himself into the wind. That's gonna be interesting to see. I will. I'm in town for a while, so I'm not traveling for work. So we will be live on Tuesday. So family, I hope to see you Tuesday. If you left a message, I ain't see it because I got this little my streaming software comes with an app that you're supposed to be able to monitor uh your chat and do stuff to your stream, but I don't know, it was acting funky, so it didn't connect today. So, and you know me, I like to leave reviews, so I definitely left a good 1 star. One. I hope you all, if you took your kids out, I hope you enjoy, get some candy, eat some for me, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I look forward to seeing you Tuesday, and if you can't make it Tuesday, I definitely look forward to seeing you next Thursday as we continue reading The Alchemist. I think I'm gonna make a post. I don't know, and give y'all some choices on which books you want to read. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But thank you, family. Get my life together.